The readings for the fifth Sunday in Ordinary Time present us with Jesus as the embodiment of the good news, the Evangelion, the Gospel of God. And yet, in our first reading, we encounter something rather different. We hear Job speaking, and he does so as a man crushed by adversities, someone who has had far too many bad news in his life, someone in the deepest pit of depression. He says, lying in bed, I wonder, when will it be day? Risen, I think, how slowly evening falls. In his words, we see someone who is desperately looking for a way out, a release from the situation he finds himself in. Someone who is also a little bit given up hope. We see, remember that my eyes will never see joy again. We hear in Job's word someone who would welcome good news and seems to find none. This is a condition that is probably shared by many. Although Job's life is very unique in the scriptures, his sentiments are probably shared by others, and by others now. We are confronted by the words of the disciples in Mark's Gospel, the words of the disciples to Jesus. Everybody is looking for you. And certainly, yes, everyone is looking for good news. For a way out, maybe out of difficult situations, for a turning point in their lives, for motivation. Everyone is looking for good news. And yet, oftentimes, if we are honest, we look for good news. We look for that turning point, for that cause of hope in places where none can be found. We look for good news, we look for hope, for something to make us whole again in places like sin, in putting ourselves always first. We might look for something comforting in money or power, or maybe even in wrong relationships, or in wrong thoughts, wrong ideologies, in nationalism, or in things like conspiracy theories. They're only there to reinforce our own bias and make us think that we were right all along. We look for good news. We can admit that if we are honest. Quite often we look for good news in places where none can be found. And so today the Gospel recalls us to one of the central truths of our faith. There's only one true good news, which is not money, is not power, is not wrong ideologies, is not putting ourselves first. It is Jesus Christ. Only Him. As St. John Henry Newman says, Him the holy, Him the strong. And so, as we read the scriptures today, let us make an effort to encounter the good news in Jesus Christ afresh. In the scriptures, in receiving Him in Holy Communion or spiritual communion, let us make an effort to look for good news in the only place where He can be found.